Okay. Here it is. Victo Nye's illustrations are absolutely gorgeous and
They
fun.
really they really are beautiful. I've had a chance to look at it and to look through the illustrations, and they're beautiful. And it comes out today, Tuesday, August 26th. And now I have a stumper question for you to start before we talk anything more about the book.
Okay.
And no one has been able to answer this for me yet. Why do books release on Tuesdays? Do you know?
I looked that up one time, but
I,
I would be being a writer and make it up. I don't know. I don't
that's so
know.
far been
I'm
the
sure
consensus.
you should look that up and then do something later about it because maybe it had something to do with distribution.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
And I talked to an editor from Random House who didn't know. She was like, I don't know what it is. And I said, I know it is, but no one
Yeah.
knows what it is.
So they gave me a date and then that sort of changed and then they gave me another date and it's on a Tuesday.
And
It's
it's
all
on a
good.
Tuesday because that's when books release.
Yeah.
So I have known you. You and I have been critique partners and friends for over 4.5 years.
Yeah.
In 2001, right? During the pandemic, we met through the writers
20,
group. Oh,
2021.
20, what did I say?
You said 2001. I didn't
Oh,
know.
no, no, no. That would be 24 years. 2001, 4.5 years,
Yeah.
right? We met on a virtual critique group and from a chat, right? From a question on 12 by
12 by
12.
12. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that's crazy. And you're the only of the OG critique group I haven't met in person.
I know, right? You need
So
to come to see the Atlanta Braves. I'm in the
I do
same
need to come.
county as
I
the
do need,
stadium.
I know it because it's my bad. I need to do it.
I
So
know.
here's,
Well, I
oh,
have
go ahead.
relatives in your neck of the woods, and I have not. I've not been there.
And you have not come up. You have not come up. So here's my first. I know you have a journalist background, right?
Hmm.
But here's my first question for you. When did you go from, oh, it would be cool to write a book to I'm actually going to start writing some books? Do you remember like what that moment was or what was the catalyst to, oh, I'm done thinking about it would be cool someday to write books and actually you started doing it?
Well, I think probably after I quit working full time as a journalist, because you're writing other people's stories and you're using your creative energy to, even if it's a straight news story versus a feature story or something, you spend a lot of time and energy writing other people's words, doing their creative work to make sure their story shines. But I think after that was when I probably decided that it would be good to try and write a book. And I've written, short stories and I've written a memoir and I've written lots and lots of picture book manuscripts. But yeah, I think it really was probably after I quit working actively as a writer because it drains a lot of your
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. And so what caused, I know that you have moved from Colorado where this book takes place to now you live in Georgia. But what
Hmm.
caused, do you remember like the genius of this book? Like, were you sitting and went, oh, this is the idea?
Well, I don't know that I've told anybody this, but so there were antelope in the neighborhood. And as every phase of development kept being
Mm,
built, the antelope kept getting pushed further and further away. And as I lived there in this neighborhood, people who would come work on the house, they would say, my friend Bobby and I would, ride motorbikes out in this area because it used to be a ranch.
so they all
And
had a story about
they
what the
all had a
land was.
story, or somebody who came back for their 50th high school reunion said, oh, this was just a prairie out here. And so people would always have these stories. So as I was an elected official in the neighborhood. It's a complicated system that they had, not an HOA, but anyway. So I was always poring over these development documents, worrying about this or that, walking around the neighborhood, doing things. And so I just thought, this would be fun to write a story about, this neighborhood, and so I was always thinking about how it came to be, how it was in its present form, and then I would also think about how it was in the past. So So that was so really the antelope, which make no appearance in the in the book. And I just, but it was just sort of funny. They were kind of the catalyst,
yeah.
and so and I saw kids as I lived there for like 9 years. So I saw children go from toddlers to preteens, and stuff.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
so
kind of interesting.
and because I think most of us have had that thought. We've looked out a window or we've been somewhere, especially somewhere that's in the process of being developed and wondered, where does this go back? And so you kind of do that thing we've seen in movies or film where you go all the way back to like prehistoric time to like the Jurassic Age, right? And so we're able to see this little boy from his contemporary suburban neighborhood all the way back in
Hmm.
these beautiful visuals, right?
Yeah.
And so from that first idea to the book publishing today,
Yeah.
how long a process has that been? How many years from, wow, that's a good idea, to I'm holding this in my hand, it's available to purchase everywhere?
I don't have my little notebook out, but it's so funny because I actually took photos with like a notebook where I actually printed out different versions of the story. And I had written down the idea. I think I wrote it down in September, well, in 2013, let's just say 2013, right? So, and then I have two dates for a draft. I think I have a date for a draft in 2013 and another first draft note at 2015. So I was apparently like, I'm starting over, right? So it's funny. We all have different versions about ideas about what a draft really counts. Like, when does it count as a draft, right?
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I apparently had two draft dates.
So
And
for the first time you thought about it was like 2013, where you drafted something.
yeah, I wrote
So
down
that
the
would be the
idea and started a draft, and then worked on it here and there. My son was at that time would have been 3, and he's 15 now when the book is being published. So, and as writers, we sometimes have fits and starts. We don't always take
right,
a straight path. It's not a straight path. Sometimes we have life things that come up, or, life events, and you end up taking it to diversion. You don't sub as much as you should or something.
right,
You get frustrated, maybe get discouraged, or,
right. Yeah.
so, so I,
I
go ahead.
Oh no, I think a lot of people, because there's this kind of idea that happens in contemporary media, that you have a book idea, you submit it, it gets rejected, then you write what you know, and boom, it's a success, right? And we've seen that kind of trope. And I think a better look at how this really is kind of like getting a book published, like you have here through, right, a major publisher, is more like breaking into movies. That one people understand is like this really complicated thing. Like, you have to get an agent, you have to audition 1,000 times, and then there's some kind of spark, right? Some moment that you get. And I think
Yeah.
that this resembles that more, right? For example, when did you get your agent? And do you remember how many agents you queried before you got your agent?
I don't know how many, and I always tell everybody I have a really weird story about how I got my agent. My agent, Anna Crespo at East West Literary, is a friend of mine, and we were critique partners. So I think just saying go to critique group and you'll find an agent is not
Is not
that's
typically
not
how
going
it
to
works.
happen.
Right,
That's not
right,
going to happen. So it's weird, but she and I worked. She was a real champion of this story as my friend first and my critique partner. When I would share it at SCBWI meetings and everything.
Which, tell everyone what SCWI is.
Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. You didn't know what it was, right? You couldn't remember. You wanted
No,
me
I did know. I wanted you to say it.
you
But I
wanted me
will
to
say this. But I will say this for anyone who wants to write a book, I would say that's your first, other than writing, because there's no substitute for actually keyboarding and sitting down and doing the process. But the second, if you're interested in children's literature, right, it's very affordable, under $100 a year. There's
Mhm.
a chapter no matter where you live,
Yes.
and they will connect you with critique groups, conferences,
Mhm.
workshops. like and even the big, they don't call it the big book, but whatever that manual kind of is, right, that you can get when you first join,
Yeah.
really goes through step by step on both if you're looking at a traditional publication path or if you're interested in maybe self-publishing.
Right.
But it's really detailed. Like I would say if you're going to want to do a children's book, like and when you're ready to get more serious than just thinking about it, the SCWI is worth your time. Would you say that, or have I overhyped it?
No, I think you're right on the nose on that one. I was always active at the Rocky Mountain region in Colorado. And then I actually today, someone from the group said, "Oh, my book's coming tomorrow." And I said, "Well, this story was born in a SCBWI Connect group where we critiqued and, those people, they heard it multiple ways,
Yeah.
once a month for a couple of years and at critique intensives at conferences and everything. But one good thing about that is that, I got encouraged. I mean, like teachers
Mm.
would say, I think this is going to be, I could see where this would apply in a classroom. This would work. There's a lot of, and it's fun and it's interesting and, families can enjoy it, but it's also useful in a classroom, which, gives it a new life than just reading at night or in the afternoon. I'm a big proponent. You don't always have to read. You shouldn't wait until the evening to read. You could read
Right.
any time of the day, right?
Books are not just for bedtime, right? Books are
Exactly,
not just for
exactly.
bedtime,
I love a good bedtime
right?
story. I love reading at bedtime, and I have some of the most
Great
beautiful
memories,
memories with my
right?
son, right? So, but I think you can read any time of the day. So,
Well, and that's a great insight too, because if not, you can kind of like, I've actually been at the library, I've been at bookstores with parents and seen them say, "Oh, this one will wind them up." And I'm
yeah,
like, well, you've
yeah,
got to have a wind them up time to read a
yeah,
book. Like, right? Like you just don't want a sleepy time book, right? Books
yeah,
can't just be for going to bed. Yeah, I love that. So here's my last question. You ready? Big, and
yes,
then we can talk about anything else you want to. So
okay.
with the book coming out tomorrow, right? What does success look like for you beyond sales? Right? What are the things you've anticipated about having this book now in hand? That's, obviously it'd be great if it was the greatest selling picture book of all time. Beyond sales, what does success look like for you with the book?
Well, I hope people get it and enjoy it. I've already seen that some. Like yesterday, I took the book to my church and I shared it with some people. We were at a meeting where it made sense to be like, "Hey, look, here's the book." They follow me on Facebook or something, and we're friends. And so it was so fun to see people just be like, "Oh, look at this. This is, like excited and even, or just emotional with me about it." So that's
Right.
been fun. But, I hope that teachers and educators and librarians can find a way that this book is useful to with their students. I know, we as writers, we're like the death knell of a story is to say, "Oh, it's educational." Kids want to be entertained. They want to be entertained and have fun.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, they can find some fun ways. Victo and I there's a cute little squirrel she's really made it a character in this story as you look through. And so I think that will be fun for
Just
every
find the
reader.
squirrel.
Yeah, just to find the squirrel and to see how the squirrel changes and everything. And so I just hope that success to me would be just knowing that kids will enjoy it. Now, for a writing career, would I love to? I wish I could tell you. Everybody who sees the book, they're like, "Oh, what's your next book?" Right? Well,
Right.
I've had stories on submission. They're on submission now, and I'll have more stories ready to go in probably a week. I've got a revision that I have not finished yet.
Well,
Um,
send it to your critique group. They'll look at it.
yes, yes. So, but you know, as any writer, you want a career that is book after book after book, right? And you want to have stories that children will love and librarians will love, and that it's, because sales make a difference, and if you can get another contract and
Right.
stuff. too.
Right.
So it is a business, and that's just part of it. So
Yeah, and I think from the 4.5 years I've known you, this story was written before we met.
hmm
We were critique partners when you got the offer.
yeah,
If I remember right. So you had an agent and you had this story. So this is never one that like we saw as a group, other
hmm
than I think you shared it with us once you had an offer for it. But what I think I would have thought in the past is you kind of work on one until, and then you kind of wait until the next one. And yet you have literally a dozen, and they're all at different stages. Some that are ready to submit, some that you have
hmm
on submission, right? I think it's a much, and the challenge is I think, to always be writing the next one. Would you say that? Like it's always, even though I've got a whole cache of them ready to go,
yes.
right? It's always, I still don't, if there's an idea, I still want to be doing the next one.
Well, yeah, and so it's like I've struggled with one story that I really love, and that I couldn't figure out the right structure, the right format. And that's one thing, like this book, it's a lot of people have enjoyed the structure of it, of going back in time, right? So I actually wrote a manuscript to figure out the structure of a manuscript that I'm revising. So it's almost like now I've got a pair of manuscripts, right? I've got, and that's a pie in the sky. Oh, it could be a series or something. But no, but it's interesting that sometimes that's what you do, is you're always trying to figure out some way to make that story stand out, the news story or the story that you're
Yeah,
going to be submitting. And there's a lot, like I read 300 picture books a year.
you sure do.
Yeah.
You read a crazy amount of picture books.
Yeah. So I haven't this month. Kind of behind. I'm at 200, so I'm pretty sure I can make it to the end of the year at least at 300. But so you need to have something exceptional to stand out, and so that's the hard part. And I would like to go back to about the process,
Yeah, of
because
course.
I was telling someone the other day, they were like, "Oh, how did you do it?" And I was explaining, "Oh, I got an agent. I've been doing
Right.
this for quite a while." Because I think my first SCBWI retreat was in like 2011.
Okay. So even
Yeah.
before you had started this book, you were in SCWI before you had written this.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I started then, and so I was telling somebody about this path, and then when I tell people, like, I wrote that, the idea came in 2013 and it's being published in 2025, people get discouraged because they're like,
Right.
what? Like, that's crazy. Or they know somebody who's just like, I wrote a manuscript and it's being published next year or something.
Yeah,
And I'm
I've
like,
had some of those at workshops where they were kind of like, yeah, I wrote two. I've got a 3 book deal for these 3 books, and they joined with the Stat conference, had written them a few months earlier, and I think, well,
yeah,
that's neat. How neat. Good for
yeah,
you.
that is good. That is good for them.
Right.
And hopefully those stories, if they're picked up like that, then they are ready to go and they're going to make my
Right. Right.
300 list, right? For the
Sure.
year.
Sure.
But for me, that did not happen. And I've written quite a few different manuscripts and stuff. So it's funny because when you talk to people, they get kind of discouraged. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it sounds more complicated. So I do
Yeah.
tell people that the simplest thing you can do is read and write.
Yeah.
Because if you read a lot of books, you're going to see how the pacing and the length and everything. And like with picture books, like this is 32 pages,
Right.
so you have to make choices. And sometimes people will like the choices you make and sometimes they won't.
Yeah, I
So,
think I love that, right? Read, write, and I would add maybe even one more, just to revise, right? Like you're
yeah.
constantly looking at it, and then there is a point where you say, I'm just going to have to submit this until somebody likes it,
hmm
right? And that you could be doing that with multiple manuscripts, right? If you have one good idea, all you have is one good idea,
Yeah.
right? And so it's good to have lots. Please.
Yeah, and that's one thing too is like you need to write more. And I think because
Yeah.
like we met through the 12 by 12 picture book challenge.
Which is to do 12 picture books in a year,
Yeah,
right?
so I think,
Right.
anything like that that can motivate you to write more because
Yeah.
if an agent loves the one manuscript that you've been working on, they're going to say, "What else do you have?
What else do you have?
What else do you have?" And so
Yeah.
I can tell you, or Anna Crespo can tell you, I have more. But
I've read a lot of them and they're all awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right. I've seen
Perfect
them.
timing.
I
Yeah.
know they exist. I've read them.
Yes, yes.
Right.
So, but it's just so funny that you do have to do a lot of work
Yeah.
and the industry changes too with the environment or,
Right.
financial because books are expensive.
Yeah.
They're expensive. I mean, I always joke that like a picture book is like instead of a bookshelf, I have an art shelf, like art.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
love that.
so like this, Victo Nye's art is just absolutely gorgeous. And it is, she's an artist, illustrator. It's wonderful. She's
It,
wonderful. So
it is wonderful. And we can end this here unless you have anything else. I will say to everybody who watches it on my social media, buy the book today. You can get it anywhere books are sold because I lived here, right? Before, excuse me, not
before,
because, before I lived here.
before.
Before I lived here. Before I lived here, you won't be sad that you got it. And if you don't have it, if you get it, also ask your library to order it, your school library to order it, right? And you'll be really glad you did. Anything else you want to add, Stacey,
No,
before we
when
sign
you
off?
mentioned the library, my local library ordered copies, and I was like, "Woo!" I felt like a million bucks. I was just like, "Wow, I'm going to be in a library."
Right? Right? When you
Yes,
see that someone's ordered your book in a library, when you get that notification, you're like, it's in a library?
yes, because
Yeah,
I grew up on the summer reading program.
absolutely.
I took my
Absolutely.
son all the time to the library, and I go usually once a week. Sometimes now, lately, it's been about once every 2 weeks. But yeah, love it.
Well, well, I appreciate it. And thank you for talking to us about your book, and everyone should go buy it. Before I lived here, Stacey Jensen, available
Okay,
today wherever books
thank
are
you.
sold. Yeah, absolutely.